So we've got a full afternoon with different sessions, or exciting session. We're gonna talk about nurses, about patients, about voice and AI, about blockchain and impact, about future and wearables, about blockchain. So please stay with us, because it's gonna be a very fun afternoon. So we're gonna start now talking about nurses. So I'll ask Shawna to join me on stage.
Is this one gonna work? Yeah, great.
Just so, we prepared some very nice booklets. So in the booklet, you can see the program, cards about the different speakers. So if you didn't get your copy, you can find some at the entrance over there, or there's some on the table. So you can keep it just with the speakers, etc., and with us.
Are we ready to go?
Yes, we're ready to go.
First of all, howdy, y'all. I'm so glad that you guys are here. And I feel like I'm kind of this really perfect ambassador, because I'm that intersection of health, tech, South by Southwest, Austin, and Europe. So I am so glad that you guys are here, and we have some exciting things to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before we get going, Slido, we've got that up and running, and we have the founder of Slido, Peter, is here.
This is amazing.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't used the product, it's just a really great tool for gathering the audience's feedback and their questions. So if you go to slido.com, and the code for today, it's not up there, shoot. The code for today is really easy to remember. It's N512. And let me tell you why that is. Florence Nightingale was born on May 12th. So N512. And it just so happens to be the area code for Austin. So anyway, if you go to slido.com and you put in hashtag 512, share your questions and your thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Yeah. So Shawna, you were telling us about healthcare and about innovation, about tech. You're in both. But what's in between? What brings the two together? What's interesting in the intersection of those two?
Okay, so you have the clicker. Let's go ahead and advance a couple of these things. So one of the things that I want to make sure that we do here is that I'm kind of on this, I am obsessed. I am on this mission to help you guys. I want you to download, double-click, and make sure that you are updated on the latest version of Nurse 2.0 and help gather them into being partners in health transformation. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, but hold on, maybe before we go further, maybe we need to tell the people who you are just a bit. I think that's important. Just quick intro.
Yeah, a nurse economist and a tech enthusiast. That's how I really like to think about this. And my mission that I've been on is really how do we make sure that those folks who are the experts in the condition, sometimes we call them patients, that they are included in all of these solutions that we're coming up with. And oftentimes it's not possible to have them directly there. So we need to have their proxies there. And that would be the people on the front line. So that's for the most part, really is your nurses. It's half of the workforce globally. They're 20 million. And they surprisingly really aren't involved with all of that. But we're leaving out social workers. We're not including our language translation, folks who are at reception. There's a whole host of people who are improving the lives and caring for the people who are those experts in the condition. And we need to include them in our innovation work.
Exactly, because they make a big difference.
Yeah. So when you were asking me a little bit about that intersection, I've been working for the last couple of years at this really magical, crazy place, Singularity University, with producing the Exponential Medicine program. This is my partner in crime, Dr. Daniel Kraft, and we get to play with all of these really interesting, cool, somewhat dangerous technologies every once in a while, and the people who are experimenting with them. We convene them every year at a conference called Exponential Medicine, and that's where I spend a lot of my time, but I've recently moved to the Netherlands to stand up a program there. And part of this program, if you want to go to the next slide, I spend a lot of time at the forefront of these really fascinating breakthroughs. And what is really interesting is all the entrepreneurs who are diving into this. The vast majority of them have zero healthcare background. What they have is 100% healthcare frustration. And so I spend a lot of time with groups of entrepreneurs, and the more I spend time with them and understand their really brilliant solution, what I've understood is why those solutions haven't scaled is we've just been misspelling that word, entrepreneurs. It's actually, EntrepreNURSE. And if we engage those folks who are closest to the gaps in care and spend time with the experts in the condition, that's when we are much more likely to see a solution.
And maybe just now, why did you choose to go to Holland? What attracted you there?
So a couple of things. One, they really are a leader in Europe from the standpoint of taking risk, and they've made a commitment to digital health. They've made a commitment to health is the health home. It happens in the community. And so all of the facilities that they're building, particularly ones where we're taking care of acutely ill people, they are cutting those bed sizes in half. They have made the commitment, this is where health is going to be. And it's also a workforce issue. There is a global shortage of all types of healthcare workers, but the biggest shortage that we're facing globally are nurses. And there aren't any more coming. And so they have made this commitment. We need to engage the technology. And more importantly, those nurses who are practicing right now, they need the technology as well. So the Netherlands was very open to that and like, come on over, let's. And it was interesting, they interviewed me here last year, and I refer to myself oftentimes as a strategic troublemaker. When it got written in Dutch and then retranslated back into English, I am actually now a strategic argument finder. And it's interesting because I heard somebody the other day say, we're catalyzing these conversations, I'm being a provocateur, and I'm thinking, maybe I am an argument finder, So anyway, that's why the Netherlands. So one of the things that I talk about is that one of the reasons why nurses frequently aren't involved in all of this is that there's a very narrow portrayal. When I say the word nurse, most people, what they think of is a white woman in scrubs with a stethoscope around her neck at the bedside in a hospital of somebody very ill, showing just how much we care. Next slide. And that is all true, but there is so much more to the story. And this is probably the type of nursing that is happening here at South by Southwest. And the roots of nursing really are going back to Florence Nightingale. This is a woman who didn't follow the rules, who saw that there was this unmet need, did not wait for permission, and she went into the battlefront. And nurses have a very strong history. And if you want to just show a couple of, nurses have always been where the danger is. They go into places that are difficult. They take on the really challenging problems. And the interesting thing, if you go to, how many people have been talking about big data and how excited we are about big data? Next slide. Who do you think was the very first person to be doing data? And when you look up a Wikipedia entry on Florence Nightingale, she is listed as a statistician. So she was one of the very first folks to take a look at data and to go back to the War Department and say, look, it's not the injuries that's killing them, it's the conditions of the hospital. So when you walk into hospitals today, what you'll notice is that we have a lot of focus on cleanliness, sanitation, better food and nutrition, mobility, families, all of those. That was the work of Florence Nightingale. Those are all nursing innovations. And somehow in history, and I think we can't really have this conversation without talking about the gender issue, women who were creating these and publishing, their work was not recognized. So those stories have not been told, and we've really kind of lost where nurses are in the pantheon of health technology and health innovation.
That's a
and
shame.
so that's what we're doing now is we need to recast that story. Yeah. So we've got a couple pictures that nurses continue to be in really dangerous places, and they continue to be on the battlefront, but they also continue to be in the places where you don't expect them. They are in refugee camps, they're in schools, they're on soccer fields, they're on oil rigs, they're in bus stops. They're just a lot of us, and we do a lot of different things. So one of the things that we were talking about earlier is why is this happening? And what I have found across the globe is that people don't really know what nurses do. And that was verified by this really interesting study that was done 20 years ago. It was called the Woodhull Study. It was named after the founding editor of the USA Today. And they were looking at the health media and nursing. And the title of the study was Health Media and Nursing, the Invisible Partners in Healthcare. And when they did this study, what they found is that out of all of the literature that was, all the media reports on health that were done, the sources that were cited for expertise, only 4% of the time was it a nurse that they were citing and looking to for experts. So they went back 20 years later, just recently in 2018, the end of that, and they looked at that thinking, okay, so nurses are more educated, there are more of them, they're in more leadership roles, let's see how much progress we've made. Where do you think we are today? 2%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so when we say that nurses are invisible, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
They just don't show up. And there are a lot of reasons around that, but we're part of that is changing that story. So that's a big piece of this movement, and where are nurses innovating? What are some of the things that they're doing? And I can tell you that part of this, my obsession with building this network, this global network, and it's really identifying where are the nurses who are doing these remarkable changes and working within solutions for healthcare. They go to the dark and difficult places, and so oftentimes the reason why those stories aren't told is because it's our taboo topics. It is things that people don't want to look at. And I have found nurses doing remarkable work on a full range of problems using all types of technologies, 3D printing, robotics, drones, AI. It's a level of sophistication that those stories aren't being told. And what I'm really excited about is that it's not I don't like to really position it as nurses doing this, nurses innovating. We're innovating as teams.
Exactly.
And I have a wonderful colleague, Daniel Kraft, a physician partner, who I think we model that. And one of my other really huge, I actually think of him as a fan and a supporter, as well as a colleague and a teammate, is Rasu, who's here. He's going to be here with us. And we've had these conversations that when we talk about changing how we're going to improve health and care, that really is the domain of nurses. And it was funny because we were both recently interviewed in this magazine that came out just a couple of weeks ago. So we're both in it. We're saying the exact same thing. And so we've actually made this commitment that we're going to be talking more in teams. And how is it that when we're talking about health and care and medicine and people, that we are including each other as teams, and it's not an either or, and it's certainly it's not a competition.
Yeah.
If it's a competition, we're on the same team. So,
but the nurses have for sure a big role because they're really the forefront, talking to the patient. Maybe have more insights on the patient, what's happening to them, than the doctors sometimes.
So the way I position this is that it's not that we have different insights, and together we have a much better picture. Nurses absolutely spend much more time, and we do a different set of activities, but it is how do we inform those things together. And so, I've got a great slide that I'd love to share if we can just click through. Go back, quick.
Back or
No, it's the one with the heart. Oh, it'll get there. But nurses have, the interesting part about nursing is that you have to know the physiology, the pathology, the pharmacology. But then you also need to know the psychology and then the practical stuff. Why does something matter to you? How do you incorporate that into your identity? How does it become part of your family? How does it become part of your community and your lifestyle? How is it part of, just every day not being I'm not a diabetic, I'm a mom, I'm all of these other things, and I happen to have diabetes. So that's really, I think, one of the things around where nursing adds to that body of knowledge. Yeah. And in the innovation space, what we tend more to do is we go to physician insights, and that's really important when we're talking about the diagnostic, the procedural, much more of an in-depth molecular level, all of those pieces, really important. But when it comes to usability, user acceptance, safety, there's this huge pool of insights that if I'm going to be developing a tool or a device or a product or procedure, how does that fit into who you are as a person? So you think about that insulin pump and you put that on a teenage girl. Well, how am I going to wear that with my low-rise jeans? So there's this whole set of insights that as we're developing these things that I think nurses really bring, and they serve as a really good proxy for our patient population and our humans, our fellow humans.
And Shawna, as a closing note, because unfortunately we're out of time already.
We got all sorts of people
We've
to come
got
and share this.
more conversation after. What would you tell nurses who would like to get in the space, be more entrepreneurs?
Yes. So
advice to them?
The advice that I was given was be bold and proceed until apprehended. And so I do encourage all of my colleagues, but the other part too is to go to the places where they're new and novel, to go to places where nurses haven't been. South by Southwest, it's a tech conference, and I don't think that there are too many nurses here. And it was just last year, my colleague Molly McCarthy, she's the Chief Nursing Officer from Microsoft, there were 4 of us that were invited to be on a panel, and it was the very first time that a major health and tech conference had positioned nurses as leaders and innovators. And so my encouragement is, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, that was a big deal. And so we've got more here. So part of this is that nurses, yes, go to the places where you are new and novel, and more importantly, make friends with the people who are the program developers, because as a nurse up on stage, this is rare. We go to health tech conferences and nurses are not there. They're not in the audience and they're not on the stage. So I just wanted to thank you for taking on this mission of mine and a collective mission. And so my phrase is, if you have a mission or a mandate to improve health and human experience, you need a nurse to be along on that journey. So
agree.
So yeah, so let's bring up some other folks.
Yes,
and chat.
exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shawna.